I'm a few minutes late. It has been a very, very busy day. So I'm just going to wait for a moment or two and let y'all jump on board. I've got my cold Diet Coke. Y'all know it's been a busy week for me. When I pull out the Diet Coke, I really don't drink that very often. So yeah, crazy week, but good crazy, good kind of crazy. All right, let's see who we're going to have on board this evening. For those of you watching the replay, please put replay into the comments section. I do go back to check to see who was watching the replay, and also if I missed any questions about anything. I do like to go back and scoop those up after the show is over. So if you have any questions for me and you weren't able to catch the show live, go ahead and hit replay. Hey, Kristen, there's my girl right there. Good to see you. All right, guys, I see some of you jumping on board this evening. Don't be shy. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and what you got going on. We got Brian with his Bustelo all set and ready to go. Brian, I mean, I'm Cuban. You can pretty much tap my veins and get Bustelo running out of my veins, and I cannot drink Bustelo at this time of night. I will be up. I don't know how you do it, man. Hey, Harsh, glad you could join in this evening. All right, who else we got on board? That's all right. Well, we got one really great, exciting announcement this evening. And guys, this has hardly ever happened to me since I started the show 4 years ago. 3 times a day, Brian? Man. We got Benny on board drinking tea, and he's watching me from the YouTube channel. So, guys, I am broadcasting as well to the YouTube channel. Some of you prefer to watch from there as well. Yes, Harsh, a bit of a new look. I kind of changed things up just a little bit here. Thank you for noticing. We got Bill Ames on board drinking water from Wisconsin. So, guys, this has really not happened a lot in the 4 years that I've had this show. Nobody sent a question this week. What was interesting was my email inbox was full of people asking about the Above the Knee book and when it was going to be coming out. So it was hilarious. I was just like, I get all these emails in my inbox, and I've been checking. I actually have a couple of different emails that y'all send messages to. No questions, but just people asking me about the book. So start putting the questions into the comment section for me, guys, because I got to talk about something. Y'all don't want to hear me talk about myself. Hey, is Pastor David been that kind of day for you too? Cheers, my man. Cheers. Cafecito in small cups. Brian, you are an honorary Cuban. You even know how to drink that coffee correctly. Lynette. Oh, hey guys, we're going to embarrass Lynette. You see that really pretty girl, Lynette, right there? It's her birthday today. It's her birthday. So we got to wish her a happy birthday. Happy birthday, comadre. We got David on board from Newberry, South Carolina with his Coke. Jim with Happy St. Patty's Day. Yep, and Guinness. We're approaching it there. Hey, Sandra. Sandra just sent out your book. You're going to get it really soon. All right. Any info on recovery from fibula revision? That's a new one, Brian. Can you give me a couple more details on that? Come on, guys. You got to wish Lynette a happy birthday. Lynette and I started out in physical therapy school together. We go way, way back. She is a phenomenal physical therapist and mother and overall wonderful friend. Let's see. Cosi have to visit to have Cuban coffee. Yes, I do. Hey, Adam. Oh, what's going on? We got Chuck on board, Bonnie on board. Mark, what's going on? Mark, you don't scare me anymore. Johnny V in the Cosi Talks house. He's saying, I'm just a person with lower limb loss celebrating my 20-year ampuversary alive day on March 21st. That is a reason to celebrate, guys. Happy anniversary to you, Johnny. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, I love you too, Lena. We got Tim on board. All right, guys, we got a nice little crew on board. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is, for those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist, amputee specialist here in Tampa, Florida. I have a private practice here that is exclusively for working with amputees. And I have the show that I absolutely love doing. We've had so many exciting things happening. The biggest excitement for this week was my book finally came in. Yay! So for those of you who are just joining, I said I didn't receive a single question in my emails this week. What I got was all the emails from all of you asking when the Above the Knee book was going to be out. It's out, guys. It's out, and it is on my Strong Body page. I'm going to go ahead and put that into the comments section. And guys, while you're there, the book is awesome. Not just because I wrote it, but it's kind of an awesome book. But there's also 150 video exercises, guys, that go with the book. So for every exercise that you see in here, and yeah, I put funny names on it because, you know, it's me. I got to put funny names on things. there is a video of me and my patient models demonstrating these exercises that's also full of information. So if you're able to do it, guys, and I put monthly payment plans on those video subscriptions to make it as affordable as possible. So guys, here we go. Book is out, and I already had a few of you guys ordering. Y'all got the Jonathan, check your Facebook. Jonathan, guys, I'm going to pick on Jonathan a little bit because he's just awesome. Jonathan is this guy right here, the guy that looks like he's Thor. Like, this is my Avengers team right here. I call them my Avengers. He's Thor. Like, he's just like, boom. I mean, this guy is amazing, amazing. Jonathan, read your Facebook message. I just sent you a message yesterday. So read it and get back to me. All right, guys, I got these comments coming in. Guys, start putting questions into the comment section. I'm here to help you out with any questions that you may have. Those of you who are new to the show, don't be shy. We talk about everything regarding recovery from limb loss, and I do my best to answer your questions. If I don't know the answers, I will find them for you. All right, so Brian says he's having a fibula trim due to skin loss and girth. Okay, so my educated guess, Brian, is that it's kind of poking out and probably causing problems. So honestly, Brian, two things. It's actually going to be a pretty minor procedure. I mean, yes, it is a revision, but thankfully the fibula really doesn't play too much of a role, even in a full-length leg. Let me grab Bob. My kids have been in here playing with Bob. He's like in a really discombobulated position down there. So guys, this is the fibula, right? That's that little tiny bone, right, on the outside of your lower leg. This is the tibia. This is the shin. The big bone right here is the shin, that front part of your leg that you feel. So with a below the knee amputation, usually they'll try to trim the fibula just to be a touch shorter than the tibia. Sometimes they might do an Erdl procedure every once in a while where they fuse both of these bones together with a bony bridge. Okay, but in Brian's case, maybe they're having to shave it down because maybe it's probably poking out a little too much, especially if you don't have a whole lot of soft tissue going on right there. Even in a full length leg, somebody who has a full anatomical leg, the fibula only takes about 10% of your weight. It really doesn't take a whole lot of weight. Lynette, are you impressed that I remember that from 20 years ago on Dr. Elbaum's exam? I remember that. So it takes about 10% of the weight. And in the prosthesis itself, it obviously doesn't take any of the weight at all. So it's going to be the recovery process from just a normal procedure. Brian, one thing I would encourage you to ask your surgeon, since they're already going to be opening you up for surgery, to see if you have any neuromas. And you know where I'm going with this, right? If you do have any neuromas, that is a fantastic time to go ahead and just have a TMR done to put those neuromas and put them back into the muscle so they'll be happy. So guys, I know that's a really obvious segue and plug there, but it's for a reason. So last week we had Dr. Gregory Demanian from TMR Nerve come on the show. He was the one who pioneered targeted muscle reinnervation. Big show, guys. We put so much information into that show. If you didn't get the chance to watch it, it's on my YouTube channel. It's on my Facebook channel. This guy's a wealth of knowledge, and we covered a lot of material there on what are neuromas, why can they cause so much pain, why they sometimes even trigger phantom pain, and this procedure that can be done to take that nerve ending and put it back into the muscle. And if it doesn't diminish the pain, it may get rid of it altogether. So they have some really, really great outcomes with this particular surgery. So Brian, I tell anybody who's nowadays, any viewers or any patients of mine who are having revisions done, I tell them to look into doing the TMR. Like I said, you're already open. And a lot of times they can just fix it right there. Okay. So something to consider. There's a whole directory on tmrnerve.com where you can find by state who are the surgeons that have been trained in this particular procedure. So I'm really excited to have them supporting the show this year because this is a surgery that I'm seeing a lot more and I'm seeing some really amazing results. Hey, Tim, glad you could make it. All right. Yes, Mark, I got my new do. Got my hair did. All right. We got Chuck from Wyoming. Oh, compadre. That's right, man. You got to be wishing her a happy birthday. Let's see. Hilaire says, my husband is a below the knee and the other is a okay, I'm sorry. One above the knee and one below the knee. In rehab has been challenging, but he's still in a wheelchair. So Hilaire, a lot of times with our bilateral amputees, there is going to be that much more of a challenge. Even with our unilateral amputees, folks who only have one amputation, they typically will not get their leg in inpatient rehab. Years and years and years ago, we used to fit our patients with what was called an IPOP. It was just basically a rudimentary prosthesis that was just put together, kind of cobbled together so that the patient could start putting weight into their residual limb. But that's just not the procedure nowadays anymore. So typically it's 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the healing time and what's going on with the wound process. And someone who's a bilateral, it is going to take a little bit longer, but Hilaire, it's not impossible. I've seen so many examples. I've worked with so many bilateral amputees myself that have had success with gait training with prosthesis. So Hilaire, I would definitely recommend, especially if you are your husband's advocate, okay, to make sure that he sticks with that physical therapy. Once he leaves that, obviously he'll do all of the therapy when he's in rehab, but also when he leaves rehab to go home, okay, making sure that he is being followed by a physical therapist who can teach him how to use that prosthesis. I cannot stress the importance of this enough in the recovery process. All right. Hey, we got Andrea on board. So I've got a PT and an OT on board. It's a party, man. It's a party. All right, guys, let's see. Yes, Patricia, it's out. It's out. Hey, Phil, listening on the road with black coffee. All right. Jonathan, awesome having you as the project. Cheers, guys. Hey, Denise, glad you could make it. Good evening. Phil says, I got the video subscription. I need to order the Above the Knee book. Guys, that's how the program was designed. I specifically designed this program, worked on it for 2 years to present you with videos and book. And kind of the reasoning of people go like, well, why did you do both things? Because people have different learning styles. I know for me, in my own personal learning style, when I was in school and going through labs and learning these exercises myself, I needed to have someone demonstrate it for me. And then afterwards, I had to read it in print to really get these exercises to soak in. And I see with my patients all the time, they have different learning styles. I'm not a professional educator. I'm not a teacher, and I can't, but to know that some people are more visual learners, some people like to read text better and they assimilate that information better. So I wanted to make sure I covered all my bases, and then just the practicality of it. Sometimes it's just easier to have a book open in front of you. And for some folks, especially if they're in the hospital still, it's a lot easier just to have it accessible on the phone. So I wanted to have a bunch of different tools available for folks. So Brian says, yeah, he had an aroma the first year out 3 years ago. Okay. So Brian, just something to have a conversation with your surgeon about. If they're already opening you up for a revision, just ask them. Ask them what their thoughts are on TMR. Oh no, Jim, I know my cameras are always reversed. This thing is always going to be reversed. It has to do with my computer camera. Ashley's on board. We got Vikram on board. Hey guys, go ahead. Throw the questions into the comments section. Like I said, this week was an anomaly. It does not happen in the 4 years I've been doing this show. It does not happen very often where I don't have a single question in my emails. Oh. So you guys got to give me something to talk about. Basically, all the emails this week were people asking when my Above the Knee book was coming out, which was wonderful to receive those emails. But go ahead and put those questions in the comments section. Hey, we got Julie. Oh, cheers, Julie. Bill says revision last Friday, bone spur, tib, and shorten the fib. Yep. Clinton, thank you for listening from Australia. Wonderful. And we got Angela here on board. Okay, so Hilaire says the below the knee was 10 years ago, and now the above the knee last year, he just got a sea leg. Okay, Hilaire. So, the silver lining, one of the silver linings here is because of the fact that he was a below the knee first, it means he got used to being an amputee. He got used to hopefully learning how to use the leg and understanding the process of how the limb can change, right? How the limb will shrink and increase in volume and how to do sock management. And hopefully he learned how to walk a little bit on that below the knee prosthesis. Unfortunately, when we have amputees due to vascular issues or diabetes, there is a pretty high percentage that the person may experience a second amputation later on down the line. Okay, it's not to say that we throw our hands up and give up. I've had some patients walk in who say, well, why would I bother wanting to learn how to walk if I know that I'm going to have a second amputation down the line? And my answer to that is it's incredibly important because this way you can get used to walking on a prosthesis and that can become your stronger leg. And in some cases might become just strong enough to take the pressure off the other leg and extend the life on it a little bit more. Johnny says, Connie Moe's in the house. All right, we got Connie. Let's see. Ashley says, currently going through some gait retraining with my new socket and foot. And boy, did I develop some bad habits in my old socket because it was too big. It did not take long to develop those habits. Haha. No, it really doesn't, guys. And this is something that you've heard me talk about on the show. Your socket, what's the number one reason? Okay, let's see if y'all remember. What is the number one reason amputees abandon the use of their sockets? I'm going to take a sip while y'all put the answer in the comment section. What's the number one reason amputees will abandon the use of their prosthetic devices? Go, put it in the comment section. Let's see. Who are my smarty pants? Bingo. Ashley had it correct. Socket does not fit correctly. Brett says poor fit. Julie says poor fit. Yes, guys, you can have the fanciest technology. You can have the $150,000 microprocessor knee sitting under you. But if that socket does not fit well, you're not going anywhere, okay? And this includes whether it's too big, too tight, too painful, okay? And this is something where, as the patient, you need to be vocal and talk to your prosthetist and always be communicating with them about this. Yes, Debbie, pain while wearing. Matthew says pain, poor fit. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? You would think, like, when you ask someone from, outside of the world who doesn't know anything about amputees, why they would think an amputee doesn't use their leg. Many of them will say, well, because the foot's not fancy enough. Or it's like, no, the socket isn't comfortable. Okay. So guys, if you notice that your socket, you're starting to shrink, and in Ashley's case, it sounds like she was shrinking quite a bit, and you're starting to swim around in that socket, and you're realizing you're having to kind of move just a little bit differently to keep your leg in line, that's the time to either go talk to your prosthetist about a new socket. Okay. As she noticed right there, your dynamics are going to change real quick and you will develop bad habits. And along with those bad habits can come some nasty chronic overuse injuries. Okay. Hip pain, knee pain, back pain. All right. And all can be prevented just by having that conversation with your prosthetist and saying, hey, I think it's time to think about making me a new socket. This one's getting to be too big. Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got on board. And then Ashley did the right thing. Ashley, she's been watching my show for several years now. I love having her on board. And I love the fact that she has a great relationship with her physical therapist. I don't know who her PT is, but I love her already, because whenever Ashley has something new, something different that happens to her leg, she goes and she just takes a peek with the physical therapist to see if she needs any changes. I do the same thing here with my own patients, guys. My patients might be living their lives. They're done with the therapy. They're independent with their prosthetic devices. But if they have a new component, whether they switch from a mechanical knee to a computerized knee, or maybe they get a mechanical knee so that they can learn how to run, or they have a different kind of foot, I tell them, shoot a video. Let me just see how you're walking. Make sure everything is okay. And if everything's fine, move on your way. And if I see that things are a little bit different because of the different dynamics of the foot, I might have them come in for a little bit of a retrain. Hilaire says he got set up with a rehab doctor and therapy. Good. Keep that team together, Hilaire. That's going to be a big part of your husband's success right there. Hey, Pam, glad you could make it. All right, let's see. Oh, Brian, you are so sweet. The C leg needs adjustment. Any thoughts? Yes. So it depends. There's a lot of adjustment that can happen with the C leg. So the basic adjustment, usually when I see a patient for the first time, and again, guys, this is me looking at it through the goggles of a physical therapist. How a physical therapist will view things can be just a little bit different as to how a prosthetist might view things. And that's actually kind of good, because the more eyes that we have on a person and their gait pattern, the more we can kind of catch things and fine tune things. So when a person first comes in to see me with a microprocessor need, whether it's a C leg, whether it's a Rio, whether it's a plie, whatever it is, I don't necessarily look at the knee so much. I look at the alignment of the whole body. Okay. I look to see how their whole body is aligned when they're standing in the square up position in front of me. Okay. Are their hips nice and level? Are the knee joints, even in the gluteus, like just seeing the gluteal creases, how is their spine looking? Okay. Are their shoulders even or not even? That can tell you a lot too. It's kind of crazy, right? So you start at the pelvis and then you move up and then you move down and you check the alignment from the front and you check the alignment from the side and then you check the alignment from the back, right? check all the alignment. If I see something that's obviously off with the alignment, okay, I'll go and I'll chat with the prosthetist and just see what's going on. When it comes to learning how to use these microprocessor knees, there is a learning curve, and there's a learning curve for the patient as well as for the therapist, right? So the friction can be adjusted in these knees. There's a lot of things that can be adjusted in these knees, okay? And usually the prosthetists that I work with do a really great job of adjusting things, okay? But in those first couple of visits with a patient, I'm not usually jumping the gun to start fiddling around with the settings on the knee, okay? I like to see if I can teach the patient first how to work with that knee. Okay. And I've been doing this for a really long time. So for me, if I notice that a patient just isn't getting it, then that might set something off in my brain to say, maybe we should have a look into the settings of the knee. Here's what I see happen sometimes, and it kind of drives me a little bonkers. Sometimes, especially in the younger prosthetists, right? They are fiddling around with the settings. They're fiddling around with the settings, and they'll say have the patient walk. And then the patient's not walking just right. So they'll fiddle around more, and have them walk. How is the patient going to know how to walk if they don't practice first? Okay. And this is usually in the younger clinicians where they don't understand the patient has to learn gait mechanics first, right? And yes, there's certain things that can be adjusted in the C leg in the beginning and in these microprocessor knees, but the person has to learn how to use that leg and how to activate it to then be able to say, you know what, I need a little more friction, or we need to back off on the friction on that knee, okay? If you keep changing the settings every 5 minutes, the patient's not going to have the opportunity to really settle into it and learn how to use the leg, okay? And it was interesting the other day, I was talking with one of my favorite prosthetists here, and he was echoing the same thing. He's like, he and I are treating a patient together, and we're both saying we're not going to start changing a lot of things with this particular patient just yet. We're going to teach him certain things first and then go from there, just to see if the patient can just get used to what he has right now. I hope that makes sense, guys. Andrea says, have you worked with an ankle disarticulation new to me? Yes. It's been a while. I don't get those as often as I used to, Andrea. I think a lot of it has to do with socket fit, because we just see that many more diabetics and vascular patients who are not able to do an ankle disarticulation. So guys, with an ankle disarticulation, it's exactly that. They take the foot and they remove the foot. So the whole foot, everything, all the bones here are removed. What is left behind is the full fibula and the full tibia and the malleoli. That's those big ankle bones that you have down at the bottom of your leg. Those are called your malleoli. Those are left behind, okay? So the advantages of an ankle disarticulation is obviously you have a very nice long lever arm. So oftentimes people with ankle disarticulations, they pretty much can go about and do almost pretty much all the activities that they used to do prior to their amputation, as long as their health status is fine. And the other side of the ankle disarticulation is they can put weight through the bottom of the disarticulation itself. So they can actually weight bear into it. A couple of complications that I've seen, and again, this is just over the course of 20 years, is the heel pad. So usually, sorry, Bob, come here, Bob. When they do the hip disarticulation, they'll take a piece of the heel pad, just the cushiony soft tissue, and they'll put it on the end here. Okay, so depending on the surgical technique, right, sometimes people can run into problems with that where they just feel it shifting around when they're putting weight into it, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable. The other thing to consider with ankle disarticulation is when they are donning the prosthesis. Because of the fact that they still have those malleoli, those ankle bones there, it makes it like a bulbous end, similar to our knee disarticulation, folks. So sometimes getting into the socket can be a little bit of a challenge, but that's where some of these adjustable, look at this, guys, I gotta show this off. Joan from Socket Socks made me my own Cosi Talk socket sock cover. Isn't that cool? And she made it for this socket that RevoFit sent me. Click Medical sent me with their adjustable socket. So thank you, Joe. All right. So guys, when you have something like a knee disarticulation or an ankle disarticulation, this is also a great consideration, is to maybe think about doing an adjustable socket with a panel, because it allows the person to be able to get all the way into the socket with that bulbous end. And then they can use the BOA dials to tighten things up just a little bit, right? There we go. Let's do that one. This is a model one, so it has a whole bunch of different things going on right now. All right. Sorry, let me scroll down here. Hilaire says he walked well with the below the knee leg, but the AK, the above the knee leg, is very different. Yes, Hilaire. And it's definitely a learning curve in learning how to activate that knee and how to use the prosthetic knee, but it can be done. Okay, especially if he's got that therapist who knows how to work with amputees. Robin is here. Robin, keep your eyes out in the mail. That's all I gotta say, guys. I feel like I have my whole team here. Robin is the beautiful above the knee amputee model. So she and Jonathan were my two above the knee models for Strong Body, and she is just one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She is a social worker. She is an angel without wings here on earth. Hey, Robin, I'm so glad you're here. Let's see. Brett says his socket doesn't fit, and that's why he's not wearing it. Go get it fit right. Let's see. Ashley says the first question my PT asks every session is the socket still fitting correctly? You got a smart PT there, Ashley. You got a smart PT. Hilaire says he has no balance. Any tricks to finding balance? Yes. And actually, guys, I'm going to go ahead and share with you. In my program, I have exercises for arms, legs, core, balance, and flexibility. So Hilaire, while I don't specifically have exercises using bilateral amputee models, unfortunately, I was not able to do that. I can show you one of my favorite exercises for balance to start off with. And hopefully you're doing this one. All right, guys, I'm going to try to share the screen and I have to mute myself. So bear with me.
So a lot of times folks hear me talk about the square up position, and you're going to see that referenced throughout the exercise manual and videos. This is the starting position. This is how you really start to learn to get familiar with your prosthesis. The average distance apart our feet should be 4 to 6 inches. It's really not a lot. And I always kind of joke around with my patients and say only John Wayne can make it look cool to stand with his legs really far apart. So this is where it all begins. This is where you start learning where your foot is in space and getting comfortable with it. So I'm going to do this with Robin. So when I have my patients square up, usually I'll stick my shoe in between their shoes. And you can have a family member help you out with this one. And I have them sandwich my foot in between their feet. And as you can see, she's doing a really good job of it. And she's keeping her toes nice and even. And then I'm going to remove my foot. And then what I have folks do is look down. That's how you learn proprioception, through your visual, through your vestibular in your inner ear, and the little proprioceptors, those Pac-Man that you heard about in my earlier talk, that give that information back to your brain to let it know that it's there, that foot is there. So I'm going to have Robin look down. As she's looking down, her brain is going, oh look, there's a foot, and it's attached to my body, and it's doing a pretty good job of holding me up. This is where the trust and the prosthesis begins. And again, I have everybody return to starting position, to the square up position, and pretty soon it becomes an automatic thing, which is kind of what we want. Give it a try.
Did that go through, guys? Sorry, I can't see the screen when I'm sharing it. So did it go through? Did y'all see that video? Yes? No? Maybe so? Okay, good. Thank you guys. Okay. So basically the square up position, when anybody asks me, how can I start working on balance? It really is about that. And I know it sounds very simplistic. You guys are awesome. Thank you. I know it sounds very simplistic to just say, well, stand with your feet together. But when you're a brand new amputee, how many of you have tried this exercise, by the way? I want to hear your comments on it, because I know that whenever I have a patient or a viewer who comes in from out of town to see me and I put them in this position, you just see them go like this, right? It's like deer in the headlights. And then when I have them start doing the gentle weight shifts to go with it, you see that people are going, oh, and that's the reaction I get right there. The one from Denise that says, therapist never did this with me to begin balance, right? Even though PTs, like this is one of our bread and butter exercises, a lot of us don't realize, if we haven't worked with amputees, how important this beginner exercise is to getting established, right? And by the way, guys, because I just got to show off, I'm so excited I have this book now. That exercise is on page 79, the square up. It's right here, okay? And in the below the knee book, it's in that book as well, in balance phase 1 exercises, okay? So guys, whether you're a below the knee, whether you're above the knee, whether you're bilateral, that's where you start with your balance. And what I also really just love about this exercise is just, it's easy to do, okay? Those of you who are at home, when I worked home health for many years, and I had to create a safe program that my patients could do by themselves at home at the kitchen counter, this was a great one. And I did this with my stroke patients. I did this with my traumatic brain injury patients. It's just a way to start, and it's very underestimated. People look at this and they're like, really? That's an exercise? That's going to work? Try it out. Try it out, right? I know, Denise, you better get practicing. So it's hilarious. I would say just start him off and talk to your therapist. First of all, if he's being followed by a therapist, I'm not stepping on another therapist's toes. Just talk to the therapist and ask them, what are some of the basics of balance exercises? Okay. Yes, right. Brain memory power, Johnny. That's right. Hey, Alfonso, thanks you for joining. Ooh, Beth, that's a great question. Beth is asking, how often should you have a K-level test? I got to be honest, guys. I have a love-hate relationship with K-levels. Anybody else? Anybody else agree with that? As a clinician, I have a love-hate relationship with K-levels. So K-levels are this grading system that Medicare put together eons ago to determine what functional level an amputee is at. And then depending on that functional level will determine what kind of technology they have, right? So you have from K0 to K4. K0 is somebody who is not a candidate for a prosthesis, someone who would not benefit at all from wearing a prosthesis, right? This is usually, these are my very, very, very elderly people who are bedbound and they are not getting out of bed anymore, and having a prosthesis just wouldn't make sense. And then you have your K4. These are the kids, these are the athletes, and then there's everything in between. So what happens sometimes is somebody might be pretty active, but their K level that they get assigned does not show that they are that active, and therefore insurance may deny the prosthetic device that they feel will give them a better quality of life, right? And we've got whole forums, I think, dedicated to how to make this work and how to have this happen. Right now, as therapists, we use what's called functional testing, right? We test function in specialized, standardized tests. There's functional tests for balance. There's functional tests for endurance, for cadence, for all of these different things that give us basically a standardized snapshot of the patient. The most famous one for amputees is called the AMP Pro, the AMP No Pro, okay? So with the K levels, as far as how often it should be done however often you need it done. And if there's any other clinicians here who would like to chime in on this, I'd love to hear their opinions as well. The only time I ever get called in for a K-level consult is when a patient needs a higher level technology device, and for some reason they're having trouble with the insurance company justifying it. So I'll come in, I'll do a full range of functional tests to really determine what is the most accurate K level for an individual. And if they don't perform as well in one particular functional tests, to see if the other tests can show that the person is in fact a higher K level. So for me, it's more of it's a necessary evil. Like I said, love-hate relationship. So basically as needed. as needed. Now, I will say this, if you are having K-level tests done and you've already been having some trouble with insurance, you really need to find the clinician that knows how to do these tests properly. These tests were meant to be done, like they were created by the most OCD type A personality. They have to be done exactly right. You have to get meticulous findings. Otherwise, the insurance is going to deny it. And otherwise, you may perform the test incorrectly and do a disservice to your patient. So this is something that I really think a physical therapist is the one who should be doing these particular tests, because that's part of what we train to do specifically in school and in our training. Let's see. Oh, Marianne just ordered hers. Oh, wonderful. Bill says, if I change to a different foot with a movable ankle, will I have to go for gait training? And again, Bill, it just depends on what is your level of function. If you're somebody who's incredibly high with your function and you get into that new foot and you spend, a few days getting used to it, and then you feel like you're doing good, then great, keep moving on. Like I said, with my patients, if they have any doubts, I just tell them, take a video of yourself on your camera phone and then send it to me. And just take a couple of weeks just to kind of get used to the process. Sometimes that's all you need for people who are high level. Some people, it really is making an impact in how they walk. If they went from something like a more stability ankle to a multi-axial ankle, that's going to create a lot of movement there. And they might need some balance training to make sure that they don't develop any gait deviations. But like I said, quick video, you can tell a lot of things right there. Let's see. Dana. Oh my goodness. So good to see you, Dana. All right. Let's see what else we got. And Marianne says, as a double above the knee amputee, it is not easy to do that square up exercise, guys. I got to tell you, that one's kind of like the rabbit out of a hat, especially when I'm giving a conference or I'm giving a talk in front of a support group, like a live support group. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to be able to start doing those again. But I'll have some volunteer come up and they're like, yeah, this is an easy exercise, not a problem. And then I put them in the square position and you just see them. So yeah, it's not so easy as it looks, is it? All right, let's see. Keitha, oh my goodness, darling, it is good to see you. Marianne says, as a patient, I do not like the K system. I think, Marianne, you're in good company right there. Who does the K-level tests, Pam? So again, you see prosthetists doing K-level tests, but I gotta be, with all due respect to the prosthetist, it's a test that really should be done by the physical therapist. It should not be done by the surgeon. Sometimes I see a physician try to fill out this form and it's done incorrectly, right? And same with the prosthetist. And again, these are designed by physical therapists. The AmPro was designed by Bob Gailey, and this is a big chunk of our training in school. I won't lie, it was not my favorite part of my pedagogy in PT school, of having to go through and learn all of these functional tests. But I used them all throughout my career in all the different specialties I worked in. When I worked in the cardiac transplant unit in Miami, we had to use the 2-minute walk test to see how our patient's endurance was doing. In some cases, the 6-minute walk test, and we had to adjust these tests according to the population that we were treating. So it really, really should be done by a physical therapist. And again, guys, this is just also based on experience from working here for the past few years with my own practice. And I'll get a phone call from a prosthetist who says, I tried doing it and I know this patient is a K3, but they keep getting K2 on their AmPro when I test them. And I go, well, it might be because you're doing some of those things wrong. So let me go ahead and test them for you. And let's see if we can figure out where the disconnect is, right? Julie says, K levels are often the magic key during her advocacy. And guys, I'm going to put the spotlight on Julie tonight as well. She is phenomenal. She was on my show. It's been like 2 years, right, Julie, since you've been on my show? Julie, I want you to type in the comments section your website. Julie is an absolute phenomenal person. She knows she's created this organization, and Julie, forgive me if I'm botching this, called AmpUp, and it's ampuup.org. So please put that in the comments section, Julie. She helps people to get reimbursed for their prosthetic devices, get approved for the prosthetic devices. So she takes these cases and reviews them and sees how it is that we can go through the system to get things approved. I know she's helped a couple of my viewers We just had a beautiful success story come through 2 weeks ago, which I was so excited to see this particular individual receive the knee that she needed so that she could go back to work as a social worker. So Julie is a wonderful individual. That's the gal I go to when I'm having trouble with a patient or a viewer who needs a prosthetic device approved. Yeah, Beth, you're not a big fan of the K level either. I know that it needs to be updated. It really does, because there's so much gray area in there. And then here's the kicker. And you'll hear every clinician talk about this. You know, you have a patient who's a K2 and they're scoring K2 on their K level tests, but you know, because you've been working with amputees for 20 years, that if the person had a microprocessor knee, they would score like a K3 level. And guys, I don't mean to sound so sassy and so crass, but you know, it's a system that, you know, they were trying to do the best they could to accommodate a very large population, right? But yeah, we need an update. Here's something else, guys, for you to consider, especially if there's any clinicians out there listening this evening. Recently, not recently, actually, no, it's been about 6 months. 6 months ago, I got called in by a prosthetist to do a K-level functional testing. And we were very, very fortunate that one of our sales reps was in the office, and the sales rep had a microprocessor knee. Ooh, and we were able to pull a string here and there and allow the patient to trial that knee for a few days. We had to sign an agreement in our blood and everything like that to make sure, you know, we protected that knee. But it was great because the patient was able to practice using that particular microprocessor knee, right? And then we did the test with the knee, and it showed like, yes, this person in fact is testing at a K3 level with this particular technology. Now, does it always work that way, guys? No. And I don't want to bash mechanical knees, okay? I love mechanical knees. I have several people that I've worked with over the years who use mechanical knees, and they do great with mechanical knees. First person coming to mind right now is Zach Gowen. He's going to be on my show in May, my amputee WWE wrestler. He wears the College Park hydraulic knee, okay? A single axis knee, mechanical knee, and he tears up and down with that. So I'm not bashing mechanical knees, right? So let me just put that out there. Can an amputee request one if they feel they have improved? Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. And it's one of those things where this is where you have to have that communication with your therapist and your prosthetist. If as a patient you feel like, you know what, I've improved a lot with my function, and this particular prosthetic device, whether it's the prosthetic foot or the knee, is kind of holding you back, start that conversation with your prosthetist and with your physical therapist. Ask them, hey, what was my original K level? Many of you probably don't even know what your original K level was. Maybe nobody even bothered to tell you. Again, it's just one of those things that as clinicians, we do it, right? Ask them what your original K level was, and then just ask whoever your clinician is, ask them how they assigned you that K level. And that's how you can start the conversation. Start that conversation, guys. And again, my goal is to encourage you to open up that communication with your clinician. Okay, not to get into a fight, not to shout, to open up that line of communication. Okay, and to say, you know, if I was assigned a K2, but I feel like I'm really functioning at a K3 level, okay, start taking a look at some of these functional tests, right? And so, guys, sometimes I will test someone and they're testing at a K2. They are not testing at a K3. And as a clinician, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie on a test. I'm not going to fudge the answers. I'm going to document what it is that I see. But then what I do is I take that functional test and I go through it with the patient, and I tell them, you know what? You struggled with this particular skill. You were able to stand up from the chair, but you had to use your arms to push up a lot. So that gave you a lower score on that particular skill. So guess what's going to be a part of your treatment plan? Learning to stand up from a chair without using the arms. Okay. So even as clinicians, guys, we can take these functional tests and see where the deficits are. And that's how we can start programming our plan of care. It's going to help our patients' functional mobility. And as icing on the cake, it will hopefully improve their K levels. Yeah. Yeah. So again, this is where having that physical therapist, guys, on your Rolodex of your clinical team really can help out. So yes, absolutely speak up and talk to your clinicians about this. Ashley says, what does a K-level test consist of? I'm a K4, but I don't remember doing anything specific. And again, guys, for someone like, for example, I've met Ashley. Ashley's practically doing cartwheels. She's one of those folks that you see her come into your office, and as a clinician, you go, that's a K4 right there, because you just know, but from looking at the mobility. And some people, I don't know how, but some clinicians are able to submit that to the insurance, and the insurance is good with it. So there's different, so for example, and Beth, you're going to help me out here if you can. I use the 10-meter walk test. I use the 2-minute walk test. I use the 6-minute walk test. I use the 4-square step test, and I use the AMP Pro, and I use the Houghton, I think I'm pronouncing that right, the Houghton socket scale. All right. So each one of these tests will test something different. The AMP Pro is kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different things. It gives you an idea of a lot of different activities that a person will do. So things like, can a person stand up from the chair? Do they do it with one smooth movement? Or do they need a lot of starts to get going? Or do they need to use their hands, right? It's very specific how you have to document this, right? Things like, you might have the patient walk 12 feet and you have to measure the 12 feet. How long does it take them to walk? How are they doing trailing their leg? Are they using an assistive device? Again, there's a lot of stuff, little details that go into here, okay? Dana says, we do functional testing for insurance purposes if new components are needed. We do other outcome measures to measure socket fit and gait analysis to keep up with the patient's progress, right? And guys, back when I worked in the hospital, sometimes we would use these functional tests exactly for that, to see how the patient was progressing. So these functional tests have several purposes to them. And it can be used as for the PT to also demonstrate a need for more therapy, okay? So, you know, if you think that insurances are stingy with prosthetic componentry, they're 10 times more stingy with wanting to give therapists visits, right? Okay. So one of the things that I used to do when I worked in insurance-based clinics and hospitals, we would use the functional test to demonstrate progress, right? So we would say, okay, this person on the AMP Pro, I'm just picking a number out of my head, scored a 24. And 6 weeks later after therapy, they're now scoring a 28. Right? So they're demonstrating progress, which means they have the potential to possibly demonstrate more progress, right? If they have additional therapy. Yeah. Many of you may not have been tested. Yeah, Susan says, I don't ever remember being tested for a K level. I was just told I was a K3, but I don't think I am. I think I'm a 2. And again, guys, you know, this is where insurances are starting to kind of clamp down. There are some insurances, and I haven't figured it out yet. There are some insurances where the prosthetist just puts down a K level, or the physician will write down the K level, and that's all the insurance needs, and they approve it. And then there's other insurances. I mean, they want a fingerprinting, an FBI profile, the whole genealogical tree. You submit K level, everything like that, and they still approve the device, right? I still haven't figured out a rhyme or reason to it myself. Hey, Leanne. Beth says, sometimes they test you without telling you. Yeah, sometimes we can be a little sneaky. Sometimes when I'm observing my patient, I'll be like, they're K2, K3, but no, I tell my patients when I'm testing them. Oh, Johnny, you're so sweet. Well, you guys are wonderful. You guys give me stuff to talk about. That's the whole point of the show, right? Dana says insurance companies prefer to have the K testing done by physical therapists. And again, guys, that's just because that's part of our training. Simple as that. Hey, all right, Julie put that ampuup.org. All right, guys, save that one in your favorites. That website right there, ampuup.org. Wonderful. Keep that in there. Clinicians, guys, those of you who are my clinicians, you want Julie to be your best friend. Yes. Julie's like, oh dear. Vikram says, so at our clinic, we always give the patient the option to try different knees and feet before deciding their desirable prosthetic components. Vikram, I don't know who you are, but I already like your clinic and I like how you guys do things. And that's something that I always try to tell folks to try out, especially with the feet. Feet, knees, it's all. If you have the opportunity to trial out different things before you make that final decision, do so. Do so and know your rights as a patient. Okay. Here's a hint. The sales reps in your area, they want you to trial their feet. Okay. All right. Let's see. Brett says, should you hide from your PT if you're doing worse? Brett, you can ask my patients what happens when they try to hide from me when they haven't done their physical therapy exercises, huh? No, I'm kidding. Well, this is what's just funny. It's like sometimes being a PT is kind of like being a mom sometimes. So I have 4 children, 4 beautiful children. But sometimes I'll have a patient come in and, I'll typically start off the treatment by saying, okay, how are you doing this week? How are things feeling? How are things fitting? Did you do your exercises? And guys, I don't give a lot of exercises to my patients. I really don't, because I'm practical and I understand, you got to give a small amount of exercises, right? And sometimes I'll have, oh yeah, I did the exercises. And then we start doing the treatment and I'm just like, yeah, you didn't do those exercises, did you? Gotcha. No, but guys, that's part of what we do as PTs. So no, and then sometimes, guys, yeah, there are times where the treatment is not working. Okay, we're human, we're not perfect. Sometimes there are times where our physical therapy treatments are not working. And for me as a therapist, I've learned, because I was trained like this, every single PT treatment, I am assessing my patient. I do a formal evaluation on the first treatment, but I am constantly reassessing, reevaluating my patients each treatment. Because if I don't see certain signs of small progress, it doesn't have to be huge progress, but certain signs of progress, if I don't see it, then that means I need to adjust the treatment and make sure that they are getting progress out of it. And then the other part of it is, if I'm not seeing progress, that's also going to clue me in to check back with their prosthesis and just see, is there something here in this prosthesis that I'm missing? Because if this person's been performing this particular strengthening exercise for this period of time, I should be seeing improvement in this part of their gait pattern. So what am I missing? And could it be part of the prosthesis, right? So no, for me, I'm not shy, Brett. It doesn't bother me when I see like, oh, well, my patient hasn't improved. It's just like, okay, they're not improving. We need to change the game plan, right? And then it also clues into, a whole myriad of things that could be going on behind the scenes that we need to look for. Johnny says, being able to improve ambulatory better with a better functioning device could help a person achieve a better K level. Yeah. And again, part of that is science mixed in with art, right? Those of us who've been in the field for many, many, many moons, right? We can look at a patient and go, that person's a K2, but if they had a certain component, they could be a K3. And then the tricky part comes in, well, how do we show insurances that? We can't just tell your insurance, right? We have to show them objective proof on how to do that. And therein lies the rub, right? So that's where we go to our functional tests. We go to our physical therapy treatment notes and show, what progress we're seeing and what progress we're being held up on because of the prosthetic device, right? And then there's some cases where the prosthetic device is not going to automatically improve their mobility. Okay. It could be that the person simply does not have the strength or the balance yet to be able to operate at a K3 level. And guys, there is no shame in that, right? That means that the person needs therapy. And there's no shortcut around that, right? That's what we're here for. Let's see. Chris says, as a bilateral below the knee, is using a hand to help push up from the chair okay? I've scored as high as a K3, but since becoming a bilateral, I've struggled to not need tiny assistance with a hand. Yes, and absolutely, Chris. And again, with these tests, so in the AMP Pro, there's a little section to indicate if the person is a bilateral, but with the other functional tests, they don't have these considerations. In fact, some of these functional tests, they just group it into below the knee and above the knee. And they don't group it by gender. They don't group it by age. And all of these things make a difference in these scores. So these scores to me are kind of a starting point. And when I'm documenting, I'm writing in the margins. I'm putting in as much information as I possibly can. So if I have someone who's a bilateral below the knee or above the knee, and yeah, they're going to have a little trouble and may need to use a push-up from the chair, I'll document that, but then I'll also say individual was able to use bilateral hands and a smooth motion and was able to achieve standing safely in one attempt. And I know that sounds really wordy, but that's how you have to show insurance. You have to show insurance. Yeah, they're a bilateral. They might need to use their hand. That's okay. But they're doing it safely. They're doing it smoothly. Okay. And they're showing good movement mechanics. So does that make sense? I will justify the heck out of anything. I feel like it needs to be. And again, even when I'm using, and I tell this to my students, and again, guys, this is just the result of wonderful training that I received in my early years as a physical therapist from my mentors, describing what you see in your patient. So if they are using a cane, don't try to hide the fact that they're using a cane. You're going to talk about how they're using the cane. Are they using it safely? Are they using it in a proper gait pattern motion? Okay. Johnny says, if an individual was given a better functioning leg, it has the potential. Okay, we talked about that one. Vikram says a bad prosthetic decision can get a patient stuck with unfit components. And guys, to err is human, right? So, when you're the patient, especially if it's your first componentry, know your patient rights. Okay. And when I mean that, having a conversation with your prosthetist about what the componentry, what you feel like your prosthetic componentry should be doing for you in your daily life. Okay. What can you reasonably expect from the prosthetic foot or the prosthetic knee that you're receiving? And does it match up with the description of the kind of leg that you are being made, right? The other side of it is when you get a knee or a foot, get the manufacturer's warranty, that booklet that everybody just tosses out the window and never takes a look at it. And specifically look at the return policy. Okay. It happens. We might be assigned the incorrect device, or maybe that device that you trialed out, you're wearing it and you're realizing, golly, this really isn't the great foot for me right now. Okay. Look at the return policy and know that the warranty, know these things about your foot or your knee. You need to know these things. This is part about being an educated consumer. Okay. So understand these things. Yes. Okay. So Alex says, my PT and prosthetist worked with me to get to K4 so I could get the Ottobock X3 and they were awesome. And again, to me, guys, whenever I have the chance to work with a prosthetist, I'm in heaven. I'm in seventh heaven because I know that I'm going to be doing the best for the patient, no matter what kind of obstacle gets thrown our way. My favorite example, my current favorite example right now is Damon. He is the gentleman. If y'all been watching my videos lately, he is this gentleman right here. He was one of my male below the knee model for the program, and I am teaching him how to run. It's been many, many, many years since Damon ran. He hasn't run since his amputation. And we've been documenting his journey on my show as well. But what I'm really giddy about working, and giddy is the word here, working with Damon, is his prosthetist. His prosthetist, Eric, is an amazing prosthetist. Eric is a runner himself, and he knows how to fit runner amputees. So between the two of us, poor Damon, we're just plotting and just figuring out how we can help Damon with the little obstacles that come up along the way to help get him ready for the race that's coming up. So for me, it's always exciting when I get to work with a prosthetist side by side and really troubleshoot and just problem solve. Yeah. David says, is there a standard set of time that I work with each one of my patients? Yes. So the way my practice is set up, I'm an out-of-network prosthetist. I'm an out-of-network physical therapist. I don't accept insurance. But because of that, I'm able to work with my patients one-on-one for a full hour. Usually by the end of that hour, my patients are just like, we're done. Because I work my patients pretty hard, right? We do a lot of good, hard work. So just depending on the needs of my patients, David, I do have some patients that are a bit higher level, or some patients that come in from out of town. So they're only here to see me for one day. So I have to kind of give them a boot camp, and we might do a couple of hours. But it really just depends on their needs. What is it that they need, and what is it that they are able to tolerate and do? Oh, Bill, well, I'm so glad you got that book. Really happy. Vikram brings up a very good point. He says, for everyone to know, just because it's the most expensive component, it may not be the best for you. I have a 62-year-old high K3 patient who feels microprocessor knees slows him down. So he sticks with the hydraulic knees. No arguments from us. True story, guys. Like the C leg really started coming out on the market. I'm trying to think. Early 2000s is when I finally, I mean, it was out in like the Walter Reed and the military veterans were getting it. And we were hearing about this magical, sea leg, computerized leg. And what was interesting is it was doing great, but there were several military veterans, these young bucks, that they used the microprocessor knee and they said, yeah, we want to go back to using our hydraulic knees, our non-microprocessor hydraulic knees. So, you just never know. You never know, right? Hey, Brian. Well, good night to you as well. Let's see. Sean says, I was in West Florida rehab for almost a year, every single day, PT and OT. Sean, you are one of the lucky ones. It's kind of awesome. And me doing all that hard work has enabled me to return to work. Yep. I will give credit where credit is due. Chris says, side question, have you come upon many amputee physical therapists? Spring 2023, I'm starting school. Are you starting PT school, Chris? And just want to know, am I nuts? I know, a random odd question. Not a random odd question at all, Chris. So Chris, first of all, tell me what school, if you don't mind posting that, tell me what school you're going to. No, there are not many amputee physical therapists. In fact, I think a couple of my viewers called me a unicorn. My kids would say my horns are here, but apparently there's one right here as well. No, there's not very many of us, which to me kind of boggles my mind because my profession, physical therapy, really took off in World War I to serve amputees. Yeah, amputees and burn. That's where my profession really began. And probably the two specialties that you see the least amount of PTs going into is amputees and burns. And actually for me, I loved working burn trauma for many, many, many years. I did burn trauma, amputee, and I would flip-flop back between the two of those. So Chris, this is a very underserved community. And it is a wonderful community to work with. You will feel extremely fulfilled and rewarded getting to teach people who've lost their legs how to walk. If that's not a selling point for a physical therapist, then I don't know what is. Right? It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job. So Chris, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help out any students or any new physical therapists coming into the field. I am in Tampa, Florida. Oh, Leanne, you crack me up. She says, when volunteering with PT students, I've been known to throw the curveball and ask, so what's my K level as a quad? I'd be curious to see what kind of answers you get from that, Leanne. Yep, 2001 to 2000. Thank you, Vikram. You're a little late, Tom, but you're always welcome to the game. Pima Medical Institute. Okay, in Tucson, Arizona. All right, Chris. Well, best of luck to you. Yes, finding a PT specialist specialized in gait training. Well, actually, in gait training, it's interesting, Johnny. Some of the best physical therapists that I know for gait training are those who specialize with amputees, those who specialize in spinal cord, and traumatic neurological specialist PTs. A lot of the treatment techniques that I use came from observing the senior physical therapists in the neuro unit, in the neuro rehab unit. They know so much about gait. And it's interesting, a couple of the PTs that have contacted me throughout the years that they just said, I'm only treating an amputee patient here and there. They have a lot of neuro training. So they're able to really catch on real quick with working with amputees. Eric says, I use the Alex knee due to my hyperextension. And when I walk, I'm using a 4-bar. Those are great knees. Great. Yeah. No, and then the thing is, guys, like I have a lot of people, like I said, Zach Gowan, he's a wrestler. He uses the Capital hydraulic knee from College Park. These mechanical knees have a really wonderful place in your daily life. Obviously for my runners, they're using mechanical knees. They're not using the computerized knees, right? So Hilaire says, interesting. My grandmother was a PT and had amputee patients in the 50s. And here's what's interesting, Hilaire, is that the physical therapists who are my generation and older, right, we had a bit more training. And I've kind of just watched how the education model for physical therapists has changed. It used to be that when you graduated PT school, you were expected to practice in every setting, every specialty. So for example, when I worked at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, I would show up for work, and because I was the Saturday coverage, I had no idea where I was going to be. I could be in cardiac ICU. I could be in pediatrics. I could be in orthopedic trauma. I could be in spinal cord injury. I could be in infectious disease. But I had to basically be able to switch gears, and sometimes I was in all of them, switch gears and work all the different specialties. And that's how we were trained. Amputees being a huge part of it. There was no such thing as being a specialist in physical therapy. As a physical therapist, you did everything. And technically now when you graduate, you're also technically supposed to be able to do all these skills. But PTs nowadays, when they graduate, they immediately go into their niche specialty. It's just because we're becoming a more highly specialized profession. But yes, the therapists from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, my mentor, the guy who taught Bob Gailey, his name's Curtis Clark. He taught me, he got me started on the road to working with amputees, and he did, his heyday was in the 70s and the 80s. So it's just it's interesting to see how our profession has just changed a little bit. No, and Chris, best of luck to you. I'll tell you what, you get into this field, you won't look back. You won't look back. All right. All right, guys, I think you guys were awesome this night. So guys, thank you so much. Like I said, I didn't have any questions sitting in my email this week. And I was a little bit like, no questions this week, but y'all were great in bringing me questions and giving me something to talk about. So guys, if you haven't had the chance, head over to mystrongbody.com, my Strong Body website. Chris, this might actually be a good one for you to look at as well. Give me a call afterwards, send me a message, and we can talk a little bit more. But guys, it's a Strong Body program there. All of these exercises adapted. We've got the above the knee book. Woohoo! We have the below the knee book as well to go with it. So guys, next week, what day is it today? So next week's the 23rd. All right, next week is a general Q&A session. So guys, don't leave me hanging. Send me the questions to my email, right? So I'm not flying by the seat of my pants next week. All right, guys. In the meantime, thank you as always for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.